someone comes up to you and says, I think murder is wrong. Reasonable guy, right? Well, not exactly. You have an in-depth conversation with him and you soon find he doesn't even understand why he thinks murder is wrong. And he doesn't even understand why you shouldn't do it. You realise talking to him that he doesn't even believe morals are a real thing, and that he bases everything on what society tells him. Would you say this guy is still a good person, a moral person? Is there a difference between him and someone who has actually thought about why murder is wrong? Well, this is what we're going to discuss today. I'm going to delve into the reasons why having a foundational belief system is necessary, and what benefits you get from having one. I'd also like to point out the issues of not having one. With this episode, you'll have the tools to understand what moral belief system is right for you and how you can develop your own. So let's go on. So going back to our guy, this scenario demonstrates our need for understanding a basic moral belief. As you may become less trusting of someone who doesn't have a coherent viewpoint. Because genuinely, what could you say? Oh, I only believe in not killing because society tells me that it's wrong. And if you're a utilitarian, that could work. But most people who you ask won't label themselves as one. And when you think about it, it's quite sinister to think that people only think murder is wrong because it's what they've been told since they were younger. Now, for religious people, I suppose they could argue that they have God to rely on. But even then, I think it's still a bit dodgy, knowing that most religious people are born into religion and they don't question the reasoning behind it. So I believe all people who have never really thought about the basic moral standard we put in place and the reasons why we do them should bite the bullet and say they don't know why they believe the things they do. But most people are too stubborn to admit this, and they won't admit that they are wrong. Some people may say, what's the point in understanding this? Most people won't get into a situation where they need to know everything about why we don't murder people. But eventually, we will come across a moral predicament, whether it be small or big, which will force you to make a decision on what you think is best. If you did make a decision based on chance of what your family has told you, could you really live with your decision that it's the right one? If so, then I implore you to stop listening to this episode. But if you feel a slight twinge that this isn't the right thing to do, stick around so you can learn how to really think about morals and philosophy. If you can't think for yourself, how can you ever expect to become bigger than most people you know? To really try and understand the truth that most people don't understand. Think of it like this. Most ethical standpoints come from whatever foundational belief you adopt. For instance, if you believe in the Christian God, you probably are going to disagree with abortion, almost indefinitely. If you're a Buddhist, you probably won't agree with the death penalty. So if you have a belief system which doesn't match your ethical standpoints, then it becomes harder and harder to justify as your ethical standards progress. So how can you develop your belief system? Firstly, you need to strip any notion you've ever had of any ethical standpoint, whether this be abortion, gun law, migration, anything. I want you to act as if you've just been born. And if any of you are philosophical nerds out there, you'll probably understand this concept as Nietzsche's 3 metamorphoses. The first one being the camel, the second one being the lion, and the third being the child. You'll start as a child with no thoughts, no feelings, and no morals. You won't know whether it's right to kill anyone or kill yourself. Absolutely nothing. It's in short, you have nearly no biases, and I say nearly because we're humans, and we can't completely get rid of our biases. Personally, I started right at the basic basics. I started with metaphysics, trying to understand why we are here, what is here, how we are here. Complex questions. And it's definitely something to think about and to go deeper into. But obviously, most people don't have the time to talk about or think about metaphysics, so that's understandable. So maybe you can just start with the most basic one of why you're here. Is it duty, God, evolution? So once you find all these different reasons, you study them. And you've got to remember, this isn't about knowing objective truth, so don't feel overwhelmed. It's about being. It's about it's about believing what you think is right. And maybe you'll find that God isn't actually real, and that it's actually just about your duty to stay alive for the people that you love, or for your society, so we can evolve into something bigger and deeper. So there, let's say you have duty as your baseline. So then you can delve into more interesting topics like ethics, gun law, all the interesting things that people like to talk about. So you might say you have a duty not to murder because, well, it wouldn't benefit society, for starters, and it goes against your belief system to serve your family and the world. And it may not feel nice at first to think that that's the only reason you're not murdering someone, but that is a better alternative to not knowing at all and just going along with what everyone else says. So with this discovery, you can finally be in control of what you do and say, and you can branch out to whatever you want: climate change, religion, war. This is where you begin to grow as a person. Grow into someone you were always meant to be, I guess, if you want to be cliche. So the benefits of having this system, it ensures you're trying to find the truth in an argument rather than trying to win the argument. And most of the time people do just try and win the argument. But that isn't important. It's the truth which becomes important. It's what you should be aiming for with whatever conversation or debate you ever have. And according to this Cambridge study, studying philosophy may actually increase your critical thinking and your reasoning behind a lot of things. But obviously that can be biased because they're university students, and it's not necessarily just philosophy, because I'm sure with other subjects you develop your critical thinking skills. But the point is, with thinking about things like this, you do develop knowing what you actually want to believe in and improve your overall thinking ability. So it's not just about being an expert in philosophy. So everyone trying to figure out their meaning in life. It gives you the ability to think critically about whether you are truthful or not, or whether your belief system stands or not. And it'd be very dangerous if you don't do this and you believe in the wrong things. I'm sure you've met extremists where you've given them an argument and it's completely logical, but they won't listen to you. And they'll never change their belief system because they went so far down this rabbit hole where it'd be a worse trade-off to admit that they are wrong. Just think about it. Have you ever had a conversation with someone, at least recently, that they've said, hey, you know what? You are actually right in what you're saying. And it's normally, when this does happen, it's a very small minority of people. And we all do it from time to time where we don't want to admit it. We're too stubborn. We're too insecure to do it. Because we're thinking if we say that we are wrong on something, it means we didn't know it. And if we didn't know it, that means everything we've ever told anyone is a lie, and it's just a complete mess. But it's important to recognise when you are arguing for the truth or you're arguing to win the argument. You need to really think about that. So this is why having a foundational belief system is so important and why it's necessary, because even if you don't want to admit that you're wrong because you're too stubborn or you don't look stupid in front of this person, you'll have your foundational belief system and you'll be like, okay, well, I believe in God and I've just argued an anti-God point. So you'll feel bad about arguing a lie, more so than if you didn't have a foundational belief system. So you'll feel more fulfilled in life. And this normally comes from the fact that you finally are believing in something that you actually think is true, which normally gives meaning in life. It shows things being clearer. Another thing is, you'll be able to have more meaningful conversations. Sometimes what happens in life is you have these conversations with your friends and you don't tend to gain any substance from the conversations. For example, at the start of a friendship, you may learn a lot about someone, like what they are like, what they dislike, what hobbies they have. Eventually you run out of things to have a conversation about, and the friendship might become more boring. It might not be something you want to pursue anymore. But with these deep thoughts that you have, you can finally have these conversations with someone. And I know not everyone is going to be into metaphysics or philosophy and all that stuff, because otherwise this episode wouldn't be being published, but you'll show how much you are thinking deeply about the friendship. You'll show how much you actually care about the friendship, and maybe they'll even consider it. But you'll at least get something out of it. You'll get the fact that they see that you care, and maybe they will more too. So in the end, this all boils down to how you want to live in life, and whether you want to be truthful and about why you live the way you do. You'll become more aware of yourself and finally understand what purpose you hold in this existence. This episode isn't just about philosophy, it's about becoming a good person. So I thank you for listening to this episode. I've finally showed my face out in public. And also like to point out that my next episode will be on AI and how it will affect therapy and stuff like that. And I'm going to start doing a rota where I talk about AI